Alright guys, we've got some big updates planned for Kingdom Come 2 in 2025, with the first set of free updates likely dropping really soon. And some of them should have been there since day one, admittedly, but the studio did announce that they didn't just want to copy and paste from the first game, rather improve upon that. So we're going to talk about that in this video, plus there's still some time to get the best stealth armor via the Twitch campaign, so let's jump right in. Also, before we jump into today's video, a quick word from today's sponsor. Mandragora Whispers of the Witch Tree is an upcoming dark fantasy action RPG that blends high-skill action, a Metroidvania-style exploration, and a deep character customizer. The game is launching on April 17th on Steam, and if you pre-order right now following the links below, you'll get exclusive rewards and access to early preview builds. Besides that, Mandragora features a really extensive class system. You get to choose between 6 different archetypes, from melee fighters to spellcasters, each with their own skill trees that you can also mix and match to fit your own playstyle. I don't know about you, but as someone who enjoys RPGs regularly, this is a big plus for me. The game world is also hand-painted, which gives it this very distinct vibe. Environments look gorgeous, and the world is filled with interconnected areas, formidable enemies, and towering bosses. So totally check out Mandragora using the links down below, grab the pre-order, and claim some exclusive rewards on top. And also another huge thanks to the team for sponsoring today's video. But from spring to summer, we should see 3 upcoming free updates according to the game's roadmap. This includes the missing Barber Shop feature, a hardcore mode, as well as the horse races. Now, in terms of the Barber Shop, this sadly didn't make it with the launch of the game, but a barber feature did already exist in the first KCD. You could change Henry's hair and beard style by just visiting any bathhouse in town. It wasn't huge or anything, but with a handful of choices between hairstyles and beards, it was just enough to mix things up a little bit, at least in cutscenes. Though I think this time around, they might flesh it out a little bit more and maybe even give it their own NPC instead. And I'm saying that because there are barber NPCs already, specifically named ones in KCD2. It's just that you can't really interact with them besides maybe some of the missions they might be involved with, such as Barber Fiala right here near the Zheleyov Inn, who unfortunately had to seek other forms of employment in the meantime. But I'm also hoping for other hairstyle options as well. Besides that, we also have to talk about the upcoming hardcore difficulty. Admittedly, there's already a mod on Nexus mods that you can use, but mostly that's just for PC. But in the first game, the hardcore difficulty had a few interesting quirks compared to other games. First of all, there was a non-zero chance of literally dying at birth, which I still find hilarious to this day, but you could literally die right from the moment you spawned, which, yeah, is pretty much fitting with the times. Also, the idea of having permanent negative debuffs as a result of various childhood trauma seems interesting. So you could choose for Henry to have constant nightmares which would affect his sleep, or having the shakes from falling into a well at childhood, which basically made lockpicking and archery more difficult, being infected by a parasite, which means you had to eat way more, and so on. There were many interesting options that added a layer of difficulty. But even without those, I'm expecting similar effects to that from the first game, namely the lack of many of the HUD elements like HP and stamina bars being gone, plus merchants and other points of interest only popping up when getting close to them on your HUD, auto-saving and fast traveling being disabled by default, instead having to save using savior schnapps, also combat being way deadlier, services like repairs being more expensive, stronger perks being changed or downright disabled were just some of the things added in that hardcore difficulty. All in all, it sounds like a very immersive way to handle the dangers in the Middle Ages, and I'm expecting hardcore difficulty to follow a similar route as it did back in the first game. But for me, the most exciting is probably going to be the horse racing, the last of the free updates, which is likely to drop as we get closer to summer. KCD2 already featured a handful of races, but mostly as part of small objectives during various main story moments. I do hope that the studio turns this into an activity that's worth it even in the endgame, similar to the weekly tournaments that already exist. Like have more difficult challengers each passing week, but increasingly better rewards if we get to win as well. In this first game, I didn't recall these being repeatable, but there was a side quest that featured horse races a little bit more prominently, so hopefully that's going to be the case here too. at the very least, I'm expecting races to make horse gear a bit more important. Right now, you're kinda just drawn into focusing on the highest inventory capacity compared to anything else. But there are many saddles, stirrups, or comparisons that feature different stat distributions that affect weight, speed, or stamina differently. So it may be worth it to focus on something else rather than pure speed or weight. Maybe focusing a bit on stamina, which means you can sprint for a lot longer, could potentially be a way we can strategize for this upcoming update. And there's also the example with the Nabokov saddle that we won from the race over there, which even compared to some of the most expensive options in the game, still pulls ahead in terms of speed, so that may still be one thing you want to win. But besides that, tournaments were some of my favorite parts of Kingdom Come 2, and I think that Warhorse Studios has a solid foundation for a proper, repeatable endgame activity with it. And one thing that they could probably add in the time they add horse races is jousting. I mean, the sport really took off around the 14th to 15th century, which would really fit the game's timeline very well. So I was kind of hoping that we get an announcement for that as well. You can already have some of that using spears or halberds, which makes it very easy to take down enemies from horseback as you charge towards them. So having a gameplay loop around that with some rewards and better mechanics would definitely be great. But like I said, you still have some time to grab the Cat Purse armor set from the still ongoing Twitch campaign. You only have like 2 more days, give or take, since the event is going to end on the 20th this month. And this armor not only looks cool, but also features a lifted hood, which we don't really have in the base game without mods. And the devs should definitely think about adding an option to lift the hood when we have one equipped on Henry, similar to how we can also pull down the visor on helmets. I'm not sure exactly why this wasn't already implemented. Plus, the set is likely to be your best option in terms of stealth because it minimizes the noise, conspicuousness, and visibility way better than anything else in the game. Though I will say that Miller Krazel's stealth armor from the starting missions doesn't get too far off either. Now, on the subject of paid DLCs, if you've got the Gold Edition or are planning to get the Expansion Pass, there are 3 big story DLCs planned for this year. One is Brushes with Death. This is the first DLC scheduled for summer 2025, and in this we have to help a mysterious artist with an enigmatic past, though not much information is known about that. From Datamines, we do know that it is the first DLC that at least is being mentioned in some of the game files. From that point on, we're gonna have the Legacy of the Forge, which is planned for fall 2025. In this one, we get to restore Gutenberg's forge and become a master blacksmith. Supposedly, this will have a similar theme to the From Ashes DLC in the first game, in which we got to build our very own village and also manage it. So maybe we're gonna get that, but on a smaller scale. Nevertheless, From the Ashes did feature an interesting change of pace to the regular gameplay. It was a mixed bag, however, for many, as some folks liked it, others didn't see the point in it, namely because you would only start seeing real benefits after being pretty far into the game, point at which you kinda already had everything that you needed. But at the same time, it was also a pretty useful money sink, which, let's be honest, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 also suffers from the same problem as the first. So let me tell you, by the time I reached the 50th hour mark, I was like pretty much filthy rich. So at this point, I really need some kind of money sink to make it worth it. In the first game, you could also decide what structures to build, solve disputes between villagers. Each building also had unique upgrades, but also labor costs and so on. So this is something that I kind of want to see and manage on my own as well. And finally, the last DLC planned for winter 2025 will have us explore the Sedlitz Monastery to stop a deadly illness. And I'm surprised that this comes last, given how the monastery is literally there by the city, and you can even check some of the surroundings. It's not accessible, but if you look over the fence with the photo mode, you can reveal some of the areas over there. However, it's not finished, so obviously that's going to be relegated to winter 2025. But Kingdom Come 2 players are also no strangers to the life of a monk, as the first game featured one such mission via the main story in which you had to follow the strict rules of an ecclesiastic living. Again, that was also a mixed bag for many, on a similar level to For Whom the Bell Tolls in KCD2, so if you didn't like that style of story, hopefully that's also not going to be the case for this DLC either. but the implication of having to stop a plague does sound rather appealing. There are side missions in KCD2 where we get to explore graves of people who passed away because of the plague. Plus, we already had a hand in a heavy dispute regarding the monastery during one of the main missions, so I do want to know if there's going to be any conclusions to it. Now, besides that, some of the folks datamined some of the game's files, and one other thing that hasn't been discussed is that there may be a tourist mode feature being planned at some point in the future. Not much is known about it besides the fact that it's being referenced in some of the game files, so it could be something similar to Assassin's Creed, where we get to visit historical locations but without the implication of going into combat, just like tour mode that lets us visit those times and learn a bit more about their history. Given how much effort was put in the architecture and making the world as believable as possible, I think that could work rather well for those who have an interest in it. But yeah, that is pretty much it in terms of content update for 2025. KCD2 does have some pretty interesting things in the pipeline, but that is pretty much it for now. Let me know down below in the comments if there's anything else that you might want from the game. Also, once again, check out Mandragora using the links down below, grab the pre-orders and claim some exclusive rewards. And another huge thanks to the team for sponsoring this video.